Okay, hello and good morning, delegates. I hope you're all well and just as happy as I am to be here with you today. Let me start by saying a huge welcome to the Generation Z in Higher Education Conference brought to you by the Centre for Student Engagement at the University of Winchester. And thank you so much for being here with us this morning. It was really lovely to virtually meet some of you at last night's pre-conference social quiz hosted by some of our excellent committee members, where we actually found out one of our delegates has been on the chase, which was really exciting. But it's a really lovely day here in Winchester, and we would have loved to have physically welcomed you to the conference. But hopefully things like the quiz and the networking lunch will ensure that we still get a good conference buzz going. So just by way of introduction, my name is Maisha. I am the Student Engagement Research and Projects Officer at the University of Winchester and a part-time doctoral student. I'm also the project lead for this conference, where I've worked alongside some incredible colleagues across the university, as well as Winchester Student Union, who have been really able to help me turn what was simply an idea into the reality that it is now. So ideas like the Generation Zs in the Higher Education Conference are just one of many coming out from the Centre for Student Engagement, which I could not do a shameless plug to. So what is the Centre for Student Engagement? We are a research centre at the university established in 2017. One of our aims is to really remain kind of sector leading in the area of student engagement in higher education. So we're really dedicated to facilitating and improving practice in the area, not just within the UK, but also internationally as well. And we do this in a number of ways. So firstly, we run a really unique, one-of-a-kind postgraduate course in student engagement, which I'll be talking more about towards the end of the conference. Secondly, we produce high quality research looking into contemporary issues related to student engagement, really in the form of edited books, journal articles, as well as educational blogs. We also host what we like to call seasonal symposiums, and these are 1.5 hour sessions where we bring colleagues across the sector, just like today, to look at particular themes. And previously that's included things like data analytics, graduate employability, equality and diversity, and so much more. More recently, we've introduced kind of shorter versions of conferences, though they still hold the regular punch of a good conference session. Previously, this has included things like Student Voice, but on the 6th of July, we're really excited to be having a micro conference in the future of race equality with some incredible colleagues such as Amate Doku, Shakira Martin, and Dennis Bill. So one to earmark in your diaries, delegates. We're also really happy to work more closely with colleagues and arrange, bespoke visits post-COVID, of course. And if this is something of interest, please do kind of get in touch with us. And please do follow up with our activities as we've got so many more exciting projects to come. So, however, today is the event that I've been most looking forward to for a while now, mainly due to the fact that I wasn't even sure it could go ahead because of the pandemic. Nevertheless, it was really heartening to kind of see that we sold out places to the conference in just over a month, actually, and we've been able to welcome colleagues not only within the UK, but also internationally as well. And so on the screen, you can see a selection of where you're all coming from, with our Southampton neighbours from Solent universities definitely taking the cake in number of delegates from any one institution, though Nottingham Trent University is a close second as well. So this is really incredible to see because I'm sure it will mean that we'll have some really rich and diverse conversations throughout the day. So why are we all here? Well, personally, for me, it felt like the term Gen Z was being used as a buzzword in the sector. And with so much talk and practice related to Gen Z, it felt like the opportunity to kind of bring all of this together in a conference format, really to appropriately decipher, who are Gen Z and how can we support a new wave of students entering higher education. In order to do this, we have to then understand, explore, and work with Gen Z students themselves. So broadly speaking, Generation Z is defined as those being born in 95, 96 to 2010. I know our presenters will throughout the day be expanding on this conceptualization of Gen Z, but they are said to be distinctly different to millennials, being much more digitally innate, wanting to be active co-creators in their education. And due to growing up in times of extreme turbulence, Gen Z want to make a difference whilst also being aware aware of the challenges they face to do so. And so with so much hope and ambition, potential, this Guardian headline from 2017 really encompasses what the purpose of this conference should be about. So with this new generation of students entering through our doors, is higher education, ready, and are we setting the conditions to enable Gen Z to thrive? It seems that these conversations are maybe a bit more nuanced in America, with some excellent publications really exploring the characteristics, motivators of Gen Z, particularly from C. Miller and Grace's book, Gen Z Go to College. Now, C. Miller and Grace really emphasize the strong importance Gen Z, place on education, with over 2/3 saying how they want their future careers to have some sort of positive impact in the world. However, we must not also fall into that trap of homogenization and acknowledge the diversity that is also present within Gen Z. And a really excellent example of that includes Jan Mohammed's term of Generation M, describing a generation of young Muslims whose strong faith identities impact their everyday lives and decisions. In a broader sense, however, Lowe actually looks at four lenses in which we can begin to understand the context of our Gen Z students. Firstly, this is a generation characterized by over 20 years of tuition fees, now peaking at over £9,000 a year. However, this is not deterring Gen Z from, wanting to come to university, and they still want, excellent learning and teaching, support services, and the right jump to really kickstart their career trajectories, along with the life experiences that really do come with the higher education package. We also know that this is a digital generation with information at the fingertips of our students. Highlighted by this year alone, we know that collaboration and content consumption now happens online. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to my cousin, who is a first year student at the University of Kent, saying how he was using Discord as a platform to discuss his group assignments with his peers. And with uploaded lecture and seminar content, this can really allow students to even box set or binge watch their degrees should they please. I also believe last summer we saw so many issues that were affecting students directly, from the murder of George Floyd and racial injustice at large to the downgrading of GCSE and A-level grades. We could see that students were really expressing their discontent and frustration, both physically and digitally, by protesting and really making their voices heard in light of all of this, showing how this isn't a generation that's made to be silenced. And of course, we cannot discuss Gen Z without discussing the context that we find ourselves in. So COVID-19 has presented, but also stripped away so many aspects of the student experience, which will probably be remembered by being locked down in halls, navigating through no detriment measures, and increased scrutiny about the risk that students posed during the peak of COVID. So in light of all of this, what do Gen Z expect from us when they come to university? Well, our previous Vice Chancellor, Professor Joy Carter, summarised this through a report detailing some research that we had done at Winchester, commissioned into Gen Z prior to COVID-19. Now, the research ultimately found that whilst Gen Z do hold kind of traditional motivators for pursuing higher education, such as, wanting a good job and wanting a professional qualification, actually they are really strongly driven by their values and expect universities to also uphold strong values, to which even kind of steered their decisions as to which universities they then picked. Now, many of these values surrounded things like excellent teaching and learning, but also support for our health services and climate change. And so the report lists four kind of changes universities needed to consider to adapt to Gen Z. One of which recommends that universities need to start thinking should think more outwardly rather than being bogged down by the restrictions that we face. We should be leading the debates both within and outside of our institutions that Gen Z are concerned about. And I hope this conference can be the real starting point of all of that too. So delegates, what can you expect from this conference? Well, as you will have seen from the program, we have two really excellent keynotes, and combined, I think both keynotes will offer insight into Generation Z, both prior and during university. In addition to this, we have over 20 presentations split over 3 parallel sessions from colleagues across the sector who are going to tap into 4 themes. So firstly, we'll hopefully be understanding, the learner journeys of and experiences of Generation Z before they arrive to us in higher education. we'll be looking at teaching styles and how they've been adapted to accommodate Gen Z. And whilst we've set the context of who Gen Z are, we hope to better understand the beliefs and values that characterize this generation. And then lastly, we're going to be looking into the future aspirations of Gen Z and how universities are, preparing their students for life post-graduation and beyond. These themes are going to be really brought to life by some of our really exciting session formats. So we have campfire, pecha kucha, storytelling, and workshop sessions. And all of these are really purposefully designed to ensure that you as delegates get as much as you can from our presenters, but also to ensure that the content is delivered in a unique and memorable way. So we're almost ready to get going. So before I introduce our keynote speakers, I just wanted to cover a few housekeeping and etiquette rules. So we will be using Microsoft Live events for our opening and closing keynotes, but all other parallel sessions will be hosted to you through Microsoft Teams, where you can find all the appropriate joining links in the conference program. When in sessions, please do join with your mics and cameras initially turned off, but feel free to enable them when discussion takes place. It's really important that we ensure that this conference is also a safe space, so we want it to be conducive to, learning and collaboration. So please do be respectful in your conduct to our presenters, as well as the committee team and all other delegates, of course. As we're on a really tight schedule, please do ensure that you join promptly at the stated times, and please do be reassured that we won't be recording any of the parallel sessions. Again, in order to help us create and sustain that really good conference buzz, please do tweet using our hashtag GenZConf21 and share with your network, what it is that you're doing today and learning today. We also have a networking lunch at 12 p.m, so please do come along to that so we can all get to know each other better. And should you run into any problems or need any assistance, please do email us and a member of the team should hopefully pick this up as soon as possible. So without further ado, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome our opening keynote speakers, Scott Hayden and Sky Caves, joining us from Basingstoke College of Technology. Scott is a lecturer and manager of a team that supports and trains students and staff in using digital, creative, and innovative approaches to teaching and learning. He has received praise and recognition for his work developing new pedagogical approaches using media and edtech across all subjects. In 2018, him and his team created and led students and apprentices at Basingstoke to win a TESFE award for outstanding use of technology for improving teaching, learning and assessment, and was named in the EdTech 50. Scott is also a certified Google Innovator, a National Teaching Awards Silver winner, and a National Advisor for EdTech UK. Joining him is the lovely Sky. Sky is a learning technologist who trains and supports staff and students to use digital skills in a way which enhances and modernizes teaching and learning experiences. Sky has also worked with various organisations across the EdTech and further education sectors, contributing to research projects and events to celebrate, share and improve innovative practice and approaches. Sky is particularly interested in the uses of technology to support learners with additional needs and the essential role digital skills training can play in social mobility. And I hope Scott won't mind me saying, but we actually first met at the Change Agent Network conference in 2018 at a gala dinner where I had the audacity of asking Scott if he'd heard about flipped classrooms, only then to discover that Scott was giving the day 2 keynote. However, we absolutely hit it off, and case in point being that Scott stopped midway during the beginning of his keynote just to say hello to me. And after being blown away by the activity that was taking place at Basingstoke College of Technology, I was able to visit Scott and Sky to see how they would feel about sharing their knowledge with us here today. So Scott and Sky, I'm really looking forward to your keynote, and I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Maisha. Hello, everybody. It's an absolute honour to be here with you today, sharing what we've done so far. Well, over the last 5 years, really, as part of our journey, we're quite experienced at this point in relation to embedding meaningful and hopefully relevant digital pedagogy across all subjects. So hopefully you can see my screen okay at the moment. I'm going to be talking today with my colleague Sky about core skills. We'll hopefully make very clear to you very soon about what we mean by core skills. for all students. We pride ourselves on ensuring that all the students, level 1 learners, people who learn differently, have had perhaps a less than traditional access point to education, and our more able students, our level 3 year 2 students who will one day go on to HE, many of them in particular from many of our vocational courses, that is the most popular destination. So we're going to be sharing with you how we've approached the last 5 years now of actually working with students, GenZ students, to actually ensure they have embedded within their curriculum access to digital tools to help them learn, but more importantly, these core skills.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Sky, so I'm a senior learning technologist at Basingstoke College of Technology now. About 5 years ago, I was also a media student at this college, and Scott was my teacher. Not long after that, I did an apprenticeship, and now I'm in the role I am now. I'm also a Gen Z myself, born in '97. So I have the sort of perspective both as a learner from Gen Z and now as somebody who works with teachers across our college and across other colleges to support learning experiences which cater to the needs of Gen Z. So there's a few different stats and sort of comments on the screen about what Gen Z are. In particular, I'd point to the flexible one. So I really liked in Maisha's slides where she mentioned that Gen Z are the 5-screen generation as opposed to 2 screens. That does remind me of myself. Right now I have my phone on my desk and a tablet to the side as well, and my 2 screens. And because we've grown up with portable technology, we are used to flexible working. We can write assignments on the bus, we can research things on the train, and we're used to on-demand technology. The other key point that I'd point to here is that we can be very reliant on technology. I was perhaps one of the first, my class was one of the first classes perhaps where our maths teachers could no longer say that we had to work it out in our head because we wouldn't have a calculator in our pockets every day, because we do. So that obviously has its benefits, and it does mean that we can be very resourceful and use the internet and the massive information out there to our benefit, but also it does mean we're sometimes overly reliant. And so other skills, which we'll come on to in a moment, can be quite important to embed. So just to note, the following slide does have a lot of GIFs on it. So if that's something that affects you, then please look away for the moment. Okay, so this is a slide that was put together by myself and my colleague who's also Gen Z. And we really wanted to encapsulate what life is like as someone who is part of Gen Z, who spends an average of 9 hours a day, according to some research, online, whether that's on our phones, on computers, laptops. So we put together this slide just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that teachers will now be aware you're competing with when you're in the classroom. This is the sort of overload of information that's coming through our phones all day, every day. And a lot of these apps, a lot of social media and game apps were developed with the kinds of people who developed the technologies and ideas behind slot machines in Vegas. They're designed to be addictive, they're designed to grab your attention and keep your attention. So there's a lot that we're competing with when we're competing for students' attention. So one thing that we make sure that we do at the college is we look at how can we utilise the apps and technologies that students are already using, and how can we utilise those in a positive sense, but also how can we make sure that the learning resources that we provide are of a high quality that this generation is accustomed to. So finally, there's just a few stats here which, just to back up that previous point, give you an idea of just how extensive the constant stream of information is. And this really, again, just highlights why it's so important that as educators, we're creating content and learning experiences which are able to compete with this kind of content, and not just compete with it, but utilise it and recognise the value in the content that's produced by creators online, and work alongside that.
Gerd Leonard is a futurist who Sky brought my attention to probably about 2 years ago, Sky. I read this book, and pretty blown away by it. This quote, or rather this acronym, popped out, and it's something that we've used as a bit of a guiding principle over the last, certainly a year or so. The idea of core skills, Gerd Leonard believes to be the skills that can never be automated and that we need to focus on as educators. Technology is a toolkit that will help enhance teaching and learning, and we'll hopefully show some examples of how we've done that over the last 5 years. But the core skills are really what are at the heart of everything we do. We don't just crowbar in the technology for the sake of whizzy, sexy apps blinding people with science. It is very much about being led by the pedagogy, led by the subject specialist experts, led by what our students will need for HE and work. Core skills, that is to teach about compassion, understanding, critical thinking from perspectives beyond our own. Originality, creating new creative works, compositing, bringing together existing elements to synthesize new alchemy in the students' work. Reputation, responsibility of the way we use online tools, focusing, as Sky rightly says, and Maisha alluded to as well, the positives of using these tools as opposed to going on about things that might go wrong. And empathy, emotional intelligence and kindness, which is important. I hope you will agree with that. This ties back on Gerd's core skills acronym to the World Economic Forum's predictions 5 years ago, and sure enough what's come to fruition in relation to the skills that we need in workforces, what universities are training people for, what we in colleges are preparing people for, the skills that we need: complex problem solving, critical thinking, coordinating with others, these core skills, as it were, factoring prominently, very high on the list here, as you can see. This is what underpins and serves as the subtext to all of the work that we do in our team of former students who've become technologists like Sky, and myself, a teacher who helps with teachers with technology and students as well. Our digital team helps not only our college but all schools and colleges across the country with these different approaches to embed these core skills. We often start with an empathy map, which looks pretty straightforward, and it is, I suppose. It's just a bit of paper, a bit of diagram where we spend time sat with the student in the classroom or with the teacher in the staff in their staff room. I said student in the staff room, didn't I? I meant to say classroom. We spend time with the people alongside them, making sure that we're going at their pace, understanding their context, so we can look around and hear and feel and see what they are experiencing, getting outside of our perspective and seeing from theirs, understanding what their issues are in terms of the pain, the barriers, the frustrations, and what they stand to gain. And that's our starting point when working with students or staff. And that helps us to embed these core skills, because only by doing that do we see what they're listening to, watching, reading, using, tapping on. Twitter, about 5 or 6 years ago, this is when you was a student, Sky, was something that was really popular in terms of students crowdsourcing their news. So we started to use Twitter in the classroom, and we used hashtags to actually start debates, have little checkups on learning, formative checks on where our understanding lay during a lesson. So giving a voice to everybody at the same time, rather than going around the class and one by one making everyone feel nervous while I pointed at them and had them stand on stage, as it were, to talk in front of 20 peers, everybody simultaneously could share their points, and then we could expand upon that. We used hashtags, polls and discussions with our class, but also other classes at the college, the first and second year students, all in a hashtag debate to discuss and have different perspectives beyond the echo chamber of our own classroom, because every classroom's got their own little filter bubble, hasn't it, with the same 3 or 4 people who tend to be more confident. And I was one of those students who didn't want to put their hand up. They want to talk in class. It terrified me to think about doing that, but to give a voice to people in a way they were familiar with was really important to us. What was your experience, Sky, when we did this?
Yeah, I mean, the previous slide you just showed, as you said, is that was when I was one of Scott's students, and that's probably, in summary, what inspired me to go into EdTech, because I was a very anxious student. So being able to participate in conversations and class discussions by using Twitter and by tweeting on a hashtag rather than having to speak out in class made an enormous difference to my experience as a student. So it just goes to show that even the simplest things can make a big impact. It doesn't have to be really flashy new technologies. Something as simple as using something like Twitter or a platform where people can post text can make a really big difference to student experience.
So we've encouraged a lot of our teachers to use Twitter. So in arts, Becca, during lockdown, actually created these badges and sent them out to all of our students. Becca's been really proactive on Twitter and sharing examples of compassion and kindness and professional behaviour and good positive reputation online, which her students are following in kind, is the truth. It's really important to us that our teachers are role modelling how to use these tools professionally. Here is an example of the way Twitter was leveraged to facilitate this critical thinking, this compassion, this importance of reputation being at the forefront of teaching and learning in a hashtag debate, across the ocean debate, ATO debate, with some students in Birmingham, Alabama in the United States. And our students were tweeting about feminism, gun control, racism, all the complicated topics. And what was more than that is that we started to live stream our thoughts because we realised some of the discussion was really interesting and some of the students wanted to verbalise their thoughts. So we live streamed with their permission, of course. We do it now and we do the GDPR form if they want to appear on camera. If they don't want to appear on camera, and they can just tweet along on the hashtag. So we differentiate in that regard. But what was interesting by doing this is that we managed to, like a message in a bottle, be able to send these videos, these images, these thoughts across the Atlantic. And in Birmingham, Alabama, we had some very different perspectives on topics such as racism, feminism and gun control than we had in Hampshire and Basingstoke. Challenging at times, heated at times, but electric atmosphere in terms of the discussion and the debate. We use this quite a bit and we continue to do so. This year's been difficult, of course, but we're going to be getting back into it, and we'd love your students to get involved with ours. Here we see childcare students working to talk about social media and how it's ruined their childhood. So they said, and they were talking very passionately about their addiction to their devices, something we'll talk a bit more about in a minute. And we live streamed it, and this 163 viewers were watching them do this, joining in, asking questions, and I could capture that evidence as criteria for their teacher Fiona for their assessment on communication techniques, talking about morals and ethics. So naturally occurring evidence captured by students, that was filmed by the student, the top bit there, and I was behind the camera just facilitating it, led to incredible and undeniable evidence that transcended the usual Word document they would have submitted. Leveraging live streaming is something we've been doing for the last 5 years with guest speakers in the top left-hand corner there. In the bottom left, you can see me using examples back in 2015 of how a live stream looks like in an actual lesson. We've actually recorded the students responding in the classroom while the others tweeted along. On the right-hand side, this is last year, a week before lockdown or so this was, we can see some students do a live stream discussion and then a performance piece about fake news. We created 2 fictional rappers having a fake rap beef, Huffin' Froth and Lil Cowpole, and we created these 2 characters on Twitter. They were beefing with each other. We created a live stream and we had some students from around the college try to get into the room to see and to photograph and to post about what they were doing because it got quite heated. They were having an argument about who's the biggest rapper in Basingstoke and so on. We had some students believe it to be real, and we kept building, made fake paparazzi shots, made fake news articles and pushed it out, and had some of our makeup students and barbering students in particular very interested, and yeah, it got quite heated, and it was all fake. It was all just a ruse just to get people questioning the way that we use these tools and what is real. We're using live streaming quite a lot, not only for guest speakers but for creative endeavours like this as well, projects, using the tools that our students use anyway. And when they're invested and they've got autonomy to practice mastery with a genuine sort of focus, then the learning becomes deep, it's fair to say. In our hair and beauty and makeup courses during lockdown, we leveraged tools like LinkedIn to create evidence, photographs and videos, using social media, using different tools to promote and publicize on sites and blogs the undeniably beautiful work that students were putting together to show employers, show apprenticeship providers, show universities what our students were capable of. So they had a portfolio that went with them beyond the course. And the teachers like Kelly were role modelling how to use these tools professionally, so the students could have that exemplar of which to follow. Our students are all encouraged when they leave the course to create a LinkedIn profile, to show what they've learned, to vouch for each other and to recommend each other if they feel one another are worthy of such a recommendation. This is really interesting on LinkedIn, where you can actually, like a game, I suppose, give people a little thumbs up, a plus, as it were, if you feel that they can research well, if they are good in teamwork. That was quite interesting in terms of the dynamic in the classroom, when some people said, could you give me a little plus for teamwork? And some people had to say, well, actually, no, I can't, because you let me down. And it made them accountable to each other. The stakes were raised because they knew at the end of the project, we're going to publicly state what we think about each other. Using tools like Instagram to create portfolios for barbering, for art, in particular to showcase the work that we do, the students do, their coursework as evidence of their understanding that is bigger than just the assignments. It's their name attached to it. They've got skin in the game, as it were, their reputation. So that's really something we're really big on at the college, in terms of creating these sites, blogs, social media platforms where we can house the work and it can be seen by people external to the actual assessors in the college. Having our students take over the social media, learning about reputation, learning about compassion as well, and talking to new students, the year 11s who are going to come up and join our course. Here you can see Zoe running the social media at the college for the Evolve Salon, hair, beauty, barbering and makeup, talking and answering questions on Instagram to actually let them know what it's like from a student perspective. It's really crucial to us that we have our students creating these outward facing spaces, and through lockdown that only increased, and they saw the importance of it more and more. We've had, over the years, and we're 5 years into embedding digital across all of our subjects, we've had stories like Anna, a student who was on one of our games design courses, who went to university and is now an ambassador for the college, still role modelling great practice of how to use these tools professionally to help you get ahead in your career. And that's something we're getting increasing amounts of students come back to us and being those ambassadors, which we're very happy about. Using live streaming is something we're using more and more as well. During lockdown, Black Lives Matters was prominent, it's fair to say, and a lot of our students were engaged, it's fair to say, in this seismic cultural moment. However, not all students perhaps were as understanding as others, so we started to engage guest speakers in discussions. Galwally, lovely chap there, he's written a book on immigration, he's done a TED Talk, he's a masterful speaker, he's wonderfully charming, and we had this lovely discussion which some of the students at the college who perhaps are less than enlightened when it comes to topics such as immigration, seeing this gentleman speak so wonderfully and calmly and in such a charismatic way really helped some of them go, fair play, I didn't really realise that, okay. And getting outside their perspective, understanding the compassion that was needed to see from different viewpoints is something we're really keen to facilitate. On the right hand side, Liz calls herself the Black Nursery Manager in Birmingham. Yeah, she was good. She's now a guest speaker for our childcare courses, talking about representation of people with more melanin in their skin content, as she calls it, and was a real ally and really fascinating speaker, and is now an extension of our team. Now we've looked beyond the four walls of our courses. Using these tools to promote what our students are doing and role modelling to them how best to leverage these tools, to use them to enhance the way we work and the way they proceed to become professionals, is crucial to the way we work at the college. It's fundamental, because ultimately this is where our students are anyway. They're using these tools without us. They are learning using these tools. So to ignore that is a waste of resource, is a waste of opportunity to work alongside our students like we do, and to actually ask them what tools they're using, to ask them, how do you learn? To ask them, what's the best way we can possibly, give you the platform to show your understanding alongside them, rather than standing at the front of the classroom, as it were, talking at them. We are getting some really interesting results, and it's something that we're starting to see across all of our subjects now. Leveraging tools like TikTok to capture evidence, for example. On the right hand side here, this is a student's formative assessment during lockdown, showing on her younger sister certain techniques, for example. Just little checks on learning to show our growth, our understanding, and the comments underneath for the peer review and assessments runs alongside that. This is something that we are using more and more at the college. Evidence using these different tools, and our teachers are listening to the students, going to where they are, YouTube in many instances. So here we can see Tom from English going through incorrect comma examples. We have GCSE English and Maths students at the college who have to resit until they get a certain grade. We are leveraging tools like YouTube and other tools such as Facebook to engage our students, and Instagram next year as well, to create bite-sized learning on demand for our students, from the perspective of you being in the front of the classroom looking at your teacher as they talk through what a particular concept entails. And the comments underneath the videos are really interesting in terms of that dialectic, that interactivity. On the right hand side is an example of a storyboarding lesson that historically I would have done in person, but now I do my lessons that are more sort of theoretical, and I suppose more about delivery, as canned videos, which can be accessed by the students on demand, freeing up my time in the classroom for mentoring, for the human face-to-face bit that can never be replaced or automated. I'm planning for a little BBC Three comedy sketch I'm doing with my friend, and I'm storyboarding it there, showing the perspective of the creator when we go through these stages. A lot of our teachers are now creating these demonstrations as canned asynchronous content for the students. So when they're in the classroom, it's about that mentoring, that human one-to-one bit, the best bit of teaching. Becca from Art has done this wonderfully, using free tools like Pixlr to actually show students how to actually go through and adjust photos and different graphic images using this free tool. We create playlists and tools available for our learners on demand, because this is where they were going anyway. So we've just gone to that same space, as it were, in terms of using different approaches that they are familiar with. In engineering, we're using different whiteboard tools to actually create engaging mathematical equation-based scenarios for students to click on timestamps, to jump to the bit they need, and to access the learning on demand. Never a replacement for the human face-to-face, but an augmentation, an enhancement of that. In the bottom of the screen there, you can see Adobe Spark being used, a free tool to actually create nice, engaging presentations, and then role modeling for the students, how they can then use that tool to create their own work. Adobe Spark's a lovely free platform, which is really nice for students to embed mixed media to actually show their understanding of particular tools. Video walkthroughs for assignments, for evaluations, for milestones on our courses have been incredibly useful, with our contact time being cut down somewhat this year, it's fair to say. We create video walkthroughs for the students so they can see what they need to do. They can click back, they can revise, rewind, rewatch when they need to. Sometimes you're in the classroom, you're just not paying attention, you zone out. You might be tired, you might be hungry. These video walkthroughs enable people to go back and to watch them. What we then do is get the students to comment underneath to show they understand, or if they've got any further questions about what they need to do. And then I can then comment underneath it, and that dialectic becomes part of the project at the start of every assignment, as it were. They've shown and consented they understand this. I'm ready to go now. But only once they've done that do we give them the brief and off we go. It's quite a useful way to free up the time in the classroom rather than the teacher reiterating over and over again what they need to do for the assignment brief.
So we've also used Facebook originally, and now also Google Chat, to create debate rooms for our students. So as Scott touched on earlier, our students are engaged in these issues already, particularly on social media. They're already debating them in the comments of news articles and videos. And it's fair to say that we've had a few students in the past who've run into problems because they perhaps haven't been particularly educated on certain topics. They've caused offence unwittingly just because they've not had the chance to practice debating and understanding, having compassion for other points of view. So what we did is we created a group called the Student Debate Group on Facebook. We added students from a few different courses to start with. We had sort of the media courses, we brought public services in, and then we started having people from other courses as well. So what happened is Scott and I started by posting in topics, videos, articles to sort of prompt discussions and debates, and it organically grew into a space where students started contributing themselves. Now, what was really interesting as we were going through is that students, to start with, things would get quite heated. At one point there was quite a big incident regarding one student, which could have gone quite badly, but what we did is we spoke to that student, and using this structured space, we helped them to come to terms with why they'd offended people, come back into the group when they were going to leave it, and they continue to participate in the group. So by creating this space, we enabled them to practice those skills, practice compassion, empathy for one another, and also consider what their reputation was online and how they looked at others. On the next slide, we've got a couple of examples from, I'd say this was about a year after the first debate group had been created. So we had a election live debate, which we were also live streaming. But there's a couple of posts below, which I think really demonstrate the benefits that the group had had. So where to start with, there was quite a lot of friction in the group for those with different political views, say, and there was quite a lot of people picking their sources very selectively. As we went on, and Scott and I and others in the group started challenging people about the bias in their sources, we started to see a lot of students prefacing what they were posting. So, for example, I know this is a far right post, but yes, this is bias, and acknowledging the bias. So that was a really good way that our students were learning about both their reputation online, and also they were showing sort of compassion for other viewpoints, but also being able to discern between which bits were useful and which bits were biased.
So we've this year continued this space in a student debate room using Google Chats, and we've now got 5 colleges around the country accessing and using this space to actually talk about topics that are potentially combustible. And teachers are there moderating it, checking in as well. And it's a space, a sandbox, as it were, for us to practice these skills before we go off and do it publicly. And we're seeing quite a lot of consistent action now we've started it. It just seems to be a self-sustaining space, but it's an area that our students wanted and craved and are using consistently now, it feels. On the right hand side, we've got spaces for teachers as well to share practice in their specialist area, makeup and barbering and beauty. Teachers in this space here from about 3 different colleges, I think this is, showing best practice and collaborating. So it's important to us that we have these spaces for our teachers as well as students to collaborate with others. Here's an example of a tool that we used a few years back now, Dialogues, which is a space for students to discuss and debate and to argue in some instances, or to have comments relating to themes, symbolism and topics in any video. You can make any video a lesson. Flipgrid is another tool that's been popular at the college, whereby our students can record videos of themselves or capture images, or use, as you can see when the video scrolls down momentarily, use the tools to filter themselves, pixelate themselves if they're feeling a bit shy, to record videos, images, or text posts responding to different topics. So it's like a WhatsApp thread using video. Flipgrid's a really powerful tool that enables our students to be able to join in discussions and debates on any particular topic. We've had about 5 different subjects now at the college use this tool, and in one instance having external students come in and discuss and debate. And underneath each video you can have threaded discussion that builds and expands and sometimes challenges views expressed by students, or they can just be responding to what the teacher has asked. But Flipgrid's been a really powerful tool in the sense that we've been able to use different aspects of this wonderful bit of edtech to differentiate. People don't want to appear on camera, can just record their voice instead.
So there's a couple of examples of different ways of using audio on this slide. One in particular is the one in the bottom right, which is Anchor. So this was some work that I did a couple of years ago, helping some access to healthcare students. And for one of their assignments, their lecturer set them to work in groups and create a podcast to respond. So what might usually be an essay, they recorded it collaboratively using Anchor, which is an app that they could get on their phone, and then submitted it that way. So this was really interesting, and our access to HE courses do have more of a diverse range of age range of students. So not all of these students were particularly confident in using this technology, but it gave them an opportunity to branch out and improve their own digital literacy and their digital skills, but also to find a different way to capture evidence. So a lot of these learners were incredibly knowledgeable in their subject area, but for a lot of them, English was not their first language, and sometimes being able to articulate what they meant by saying it rather than hesitantly writing it and rewriting words and worrying about their sentence structure meant that they were able to articulate a lot better and a lot more fluently when doing it via speaking. So actually, a lot of these students, once they got over the initial barrier of not being certain about how to use the tech, they found this really beneficial because they could demonstrate their understanding and their comprehensive knowledge on the topics just by conversationally speaking in their groups, rather than having to do it as an essay. I think Scott might have frozen. So I'll just go over a couple of other examples on this slide. So we also have some examples of Soundtrap, which you may be familiar with. So Soundtrap's great both for accessing podcasts and media that's already out there, but also creating your own media. So again, a lot of students, when they use different portable technologies, they can access media, not just text and video, but increasingly audio. I listen to podcasts all the time. I listen to a podcast every night before I go to bed, and I learn a lot more from podcasts than I do perhaps by reading articles over and over. So our students are creating these resources partly sometimes to capture evidence, but also they can create them to create resources for them to revise from. So as we alluded to earlier, my generation are lucky enough that we have an enormous variety of different types of resources, be it video, text, audio. So by using their originality and creating different types of resources, it means that they can access those to revise for themselves as well. So I'll just hold on a moment because I believe our slides have gone. Maisha, do we have any questions at the moment whilst we're looking to get the slides back that I could take?
Yeah, hi Sky, sorry about that. We do actually have a lot of questions coming in from delegates, so we can definitely use that to filter the time. So Laura Dickens says, hi to you both and thank you for the presentation so far. She's learning so much, or they're learning so much, and absolutely love the video assignment walkthroughs. I guess it's a kind of running theme of what a few delegates are asking is there an overall technology strategy, as in, is the technology you use decided centrally and then supported by your department, or can departments discover their own technologies with your support? I think delegates might be wanting to get a sense of, you know, how do you train staff, and how do you enable them to use this technology in ways that we can as well?
Great question, thank you. So yes, we have a digital strategy at the college, and there are some tools that are used across the college. So approximately 5 years ago, we moved over to G Suite. So we use Google Classroom and the Google Suite of tools, and that's used across college. But in terms of the different EdTech tools that we've used, so a lot of the ones that we've shown in this presentation so far, a lot of those are discovered by departments. Some of them, like the ones we'll go on to in a moment, are subject specialist. Other ones are discovered by our team, so we're a digital team, and then we train our staff how to use them. But really, we don't dictate which tools teachers have to use. We show them the different tools, we train them on different things that are transferable, and then we sort of allow them to pick. So I think Scott's back now, so if we come back to that question in more depth at the end, would that be okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Lovely.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Right. Where were we? We're looking at this. This is how engineering have been using CAD tools in the cloud online. This wonderful free tool. If you're using any sort of 3D collaborative CAD tools, Onshape, ONSHAPE, it's completely free, industry grade CAD. And our students have been working in these online spaces to create these collaborative resources, tools. And what's really interesting about this, when they've been working during lockdown and now they're back, is that the back channel, the chat, has been a wonderful space for some of our more laddie, geezer style students to talk and to open up and to be compassionate and kind and chat and to reach out to their friends in these online spaces when we were all cut off from each other. And that was an unintended consequence of using these tools. The back channel, the chat that ran alongside these online real-time collaborative tools was really fascinating. Same for automotive, using tools like Electude when they were going underneath the digital bonnet, as it were, of the car to deduce and problem solve and do a service to find out what the issues were, working with their teacher's instruction, as you can see here. Using tools like Jamboard to go through a service and to outline what the needs were for particular stages and empathizing with what other people in a team need to consider when carrying out a service collaboratively in real time alongside each other. Using tools like ThingLink in the bottom left hand corner to label up and diagram of key components of particular aspects of motor vehicles. Using these different tools to enhance their understanding, to consolidate their understanding, has been really crucial.
So this here is our public services course. Now public services is a very practical course, and the lecturer that you can see in the top left picture, James, really wanted to find a way to do truly blended learning, so a combination of using the physical space and the physical environment, but also embedding technology. So this was a really brilliant example of how to do blended learning. We have, as you can see, projected onto the table, they were doing major incident planning. So they used Google Drawings to live map out their responses to incidents, using the resources around the room to support them and using the right symbology, and also using audio. So they used Google Meet and YouTube Live to act as the emergency call handlers. And this created a really engaging and lifelike environment for them to learn in. And also really helped them gain compassion for what the actual job that a lot of them wanted to go into was like.
Thank you, Sky. Hospitality have been stars during lockdown and beyond, actually, leveraging tools such as live streaming, using Apple Clips on iOS to actually create videos, as you can see in the top right hand corner. Justin doing some lovely hoisin pork noodles, capturing some evidence and how-to guides for his students, and then his students reciprocating by creating their own images or video of them carrying out the instruction, creating these different examples and sharing the images and commenting on each other's work in breakout room spaces where students are more likely to open up and talk, we find, in the breakout room spaces as opposed to in front of the entire class, and sharing their wonderful work. This is something that we have seen increasingly over the last year or so, this willingness to share. Once the teacher role models how to use these tools, or takes a chance and just uses these tools, even if they're not particularly comfortable, as Justin once was, that goodwill tends to reciprocate, the students actually following in kind, as it were. Using digital whiteboarding tools has been a really useful way for our students to ideate, to sketch, to doodle, to show progress, to annotate, and to give their thoughts on a particular piece of work. Not all of our students go to the written word as their primary mode of communication. Sometimes a sketch and a doodle and a meme can help them to actually articulate a particular thought or explain how they're feeling about a particular topic, and that's been really powerful for us in the last year. As a starter activity, also check on learning. We use forms quite a lot to check in on our learners and how they're feeling. As you can see on the right hand side here, this is something we do every couple of weeks or so with a few of our courses, just to find out how they're feeling using emojis, how many hours sleep they got last night. Being conscious of their digital well-being is something we're very proud of at the college, something we're going to be doing more and more of. Using Google Forms is something we're really keen to use to streamline marking for our teachers as well. As you can see on the left-hand side here of our English and Maths lessons, doing little checks on learning so the students can test themselves at their own pace whenever they're ready to take that test, as it were, before they go forward for the real exam, as it were. This helps the teachers to analyse as well where they are and to use the time in the classroom to focus on what is needed in terms of them and their pastoral side of the role, but also the academic. Tools like Pear Deck have been increasingly leveraged this year as well to find out how students are feeling during lessons. This was pretty damning, actually, and one of my lessons, as you can see here, I stopped the lesson after 20 minutes because my students were just not ready to learn. And in that online lesson, I felt really bad about it because I thought I've done something wrong here. Sometimes the context of where we are means that learning cannot take place. They weren't ready to learn, my students. And we took a break and we came back and spoke about what we could do to make things easier. They were just, as we all were at many points in the last year, not ready to think deeply and to move forward. We had to take care of the baseline human needs, as it were, in terms of getting comfortable before we moved on to more complicated tasks like this, using tools like Miro, where we can collaborate in real time, give emojis on each other's work, fly around the mice there you can see flying around, and give each other comments and ideate with each other, sketch and plan and work alongside each other. Miro is magnificent and could be my favourite tool we've used this year. To see all of your students flying around and engaging on tasks using these pre-built templates, love it.
So just as a few closing notes, as Scott mentioned, we've been looking a lot at digital wellbeing and the importance of that. Now, we will publish these slides afterwards, so I won't go into too much detail right now, as I'm aware we've just gone over time. But we will publish these slides which link to our digital wellbeing site, which I really recommend you take a look at. We've collated a lot of resources that can be used with students, a lot of apps that are really useful for students as well. So if you look out on the hashtag on Twitter, we'll make sure that's published afterwards so that you can have a look through that.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience and understanding with our technical difficulties today. Just to wrap things up, we pride ourselves on working alongside students. Students, much like Sky, who's grown up to become an apprentice and is now a senior learning technologist, working alongside our students to help them to learn in a way that is most fitting, to try and, I suppose, leverage their natural curiosity and to help them to create new ideas using these different tools. As I've said here, our students are foragers and synthesizers and alchemists, taking inspiration from diverse sources. This is my favourite YouTube clip of all time. So Bob Dylan, outside a chemist, riffing and improvising the words on the sign to formulate it into different beat poetry. That clip springs to mind when I think about, well, I've been asked to think about what we do, which is essentially putting things together into different combinations, as Bobby D does so wonderfully in this clip here. Collaborating and synthesizing and putting things together to create something new, using the tools already there and working alongside our students is something that we are keen to do more and more, and it's the way that we will forever work, working alongside our students. So these core skills, compassion, originality, reputation and empathy, are at the heart of all we do. And it's something that we're very keen to share more about with any of you. If you've got any further questions, please reach out to us. We're really keen to work alongside you and really keen to share and collaborate and hopefully see a few of you later on.
Scott and Sky, thank you so much for that incredible opening keynote. I think the best way to start off the Generation Z in Higher Education conference. We've got a lot of questions that the lovely Cassie is feeding through to me. One of which maybe we can talk more about, you know, how you train your kind of staff in getting up to date with this kind of technology. There was a really interesting question from David as well about how you educate students regarding social media and the values and standards that are necessary. You know, how do you kind of monitor inappropriate kind of use and things like that? And surely that must be a bit time consuming on your end.
Sky, what are your thoughts on that? I'll share what I think after.
Yeah, so I think starting off with the one on social media, it's a really good point, and it's something that Scott and I have discussed at length, because over the years we have had incidents, as mentioned earlier, and increasingly we're trying to do it as embedded into the rest of what we do as much as possible. So first of all, we do a digital induction every year for new students, and we always include elements of digital citizenship, digital wellbeing in that, as well as introducing them to the digital tools that they'll be using. But we also look for ways that we can naturally embed it. So for example, I was doing a lesson with some earlier students a few weeks back on search skills and how to use smart searching in Google. And so I got them to search themselves and see what came up. And that really naturally evolved into a very interesting, shocking at times, and in some ways upsetting discussion for some of the learners when they realised the kind of information that was public about them. But most importantly, it was really constructive because it was in a safe environment where they could explore that, ask questions, ask me how to change their settings. So as much as possible, we try to do it organically, but we also, just to have a sort of a catch-all net, I guess, we do digital induction every year, which sort of embeds those themes.
Digital induction is, as Sky rightly says, and it's something that Sky authors for all 2,000 full-time students in week 1 and week 2. This understanding of how these tools can help rather than haunt your career, and we focus on the positives, the professional side of using these tools. If students overstep the line, and Lord knows they will, then of course we will provide that scaffold and support and help and realization of how this can help you, or the way you're using it at present. Employers will see this. Employers will see this, and we repeat that. Employers will see this because ultimately we care about their future selves, and it's important that we make sure that they are getting to their next stage. We are that stepping stone, and ensuring we provide help and support and time and resource to be at their own speed. Again, that empathy mapping we started at the top of this keynote, to understand their perspective, to see from their view, and to help them at their own pace in a bespoke and personalised way where possible. That's crucial. And we have 1 hour of embedded flipped learning on every single course at the college, whereby the students go and work in an independent study zone with our learning facilitators. And that often highlights, because the students can open up and talk, and it's not a pastoral care that takes place in those timetabled, registered, flipped learning zones, 1 hour a week for every course. And often that's when things are revealed. A student is perhaps being unprofessional or being a little bit mean or has encountered something, and that enables us and our teams to sort of help, as it were. So we have that relationship first and foremost in that flipped learning hour with every single full-time student, which is often the gateway to us getting the in to help the students and intervening.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Scott. Maybe we'll have time for one more question before delegates join their 11 o'clock parallel sessions. So someone interestingly asked, and I think it's very topical, that as a baby boomer, this is all very interesting. Thank you very much. But how does the college manage digital poverty among students? And if we could have like a very quick response to that, that would be great.
Of course. So our IT team basically rented out technology like library books when it came to lockdown, for example. That was wonderful of them. So students could all take home devices and rent them out, and they were accountable for them. It is an issue. and it is something the government are working really hard to actually resolve, and it's something that the DfE are actually still providing support with when there's deprived areas in need of technology. So please reach out to me and I can connect you with different people who can help facilitate any technology that's needed in certain schools, colleges, universities.
And Sky, did you want to quickly add anything, or?
Yeah, I think that covers it really. And just additionally, that we have tech in our office. So when we do these research projects and things that we get funding for, that goes straight back into the college. So we have things like iPads and tablets that we can loan out to students as well. So I do think it's a really important point, and there's going to be different solutions for different organisations. But it is definitely something that should always be considered.
Amazing. Thank you so much once again, Scott and Sky. I can see Cassie's been sending in all the great comments that the delegates have been posting to us. Delegates, we're going to try and find out if there's a way that all of your questions are answered by the lovely Sky and Scott. And I'm sure they wouldn't mind you guys reaching out to them and Basingstoke College of Technology if you needed any more help with anything at all. But we will close the opening keynote now and let you get to pick your parallel sessions, which commence at 11 o'clock. All of, again, your links should be found on the program. If you need any assistance, please do drop us a line on GenZ conference at winchester.ac.uk. And thank you so much. We are looking forward to having you throughout the day, and please do join us once again for the closing keynote using this platform again.